Are you listening? Damn. Yeah.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Damn Podcast. Sorry for the little delay. It was technical issues on my end, not Jake's. I was blaming poor Jake, but it was me. So we are here. We are going live. And it's been a minute, Jake. You've been battling the sickness. You're back. I was taking that trip to Corvallis a lot that week, but we are so glad you're back. You feeling better?
Much better, thankfully.
Awesome. Yes, we missed you for a week, but the good news is now, and Ty actually had something come up with work, so he cannot join us today. But good news is I have seen a ton of practice. Jake has seen a ton of practice now, so we can both discuss this whole wrap up of fall camp, because fall camp came to an end today. They get the next 2 days off, and then they jump right into game prep for Idaho State. So, and I say they get the next 2 days off. It's a lot of meetings and still working, just not practice field. So we're going to have a quick rundown. We're going to talk fall camp wrap up, and then Jake and I are going to go season game by game, give our predictions for the entire season ahead, and then we're going to jump into a pretty big mailbag. We're going to try to get to as many of these, if not all of the questions that we got on Twitter and in the Lodge at Beaver Blitz. But Jake, how's practice today?
Today was definitely a slower day. A lot of situational type stuff. There's a little 2-minute drill type action. A little offense is trying to milk the clock out. And it seems like we've kind of seen an added emphasis on those situational stuff so far under Trent Bray, whereas Jonathan, it was there, but not as much as Trent's been running it. And I do think that's a pretty positive sign.
Yeah, there's been a lot, even as far as, like late last week, they were doing, third down stuff, fourth down stuff, even end of half, like snaps and kneeling and how that all looks. And I think it's really important. It's the little details that we haven't seen a lot of, I'd even say for the past 20 years, that they're really kind of focusing on, at least so nothing's new to these guys. Yep. So, like I said, 2-day break before they jump into game prep mode for Idaho State. We are 11 days away from the first game. So excited. Football is here. Let's talk offense. If there's been one common thread throughout spring and into fall, it's been quarterback play, and we'll talk about that. But let's talk about what areas of the offense you feel are the strongest.
Yeah, again, I feel like the run game powered by that left side of the offensive line, which has got some size. Josh Gray's a guy who could be a day 1, day 2 NFL draft pick. Gerard Christian looked in hands, an absolute massive human being at left tackle. And then everything we've seen from Van Wells at the center spot's been pretty positive. And then I think Oregon State's got 2 proven backs, and then 2 exciting younger guys in Salahadin Allah as well as Jake Reichel that are going to push for some carries as well. And based off how the offense has kind of worked during the fall, and how with the uncertainty around the quarterback spot in the passing game, I do think, especially in these first 2 to 3 weeks of the season, Oregon State is going to rely pretty heavily on that run game.
Yeah. And you talked about the offensive line some. How much have you seen them improve since spring?
I mean, in the spring, it seemed like the Oregon State edge defenders in particular, guys like Takara Hickel, before he got hurt, Nico Taylor, they were constantly in the backfield. And while it's still been there at times, there's definitely been a lot less of it. And I think a big part of that has been Oregon State getting those guys back that they didn't have during the spring. I mean, between Christian, Lichtenhand, and Josh Gray, Oregon State's got a lot of starts, and getting those guys back, it really provides some veteran experience to that group, and it allows them to rotate in maybe 1 or 2 younger guys instead of 3 or 4 at the same time.
Yeah, from watching it last week, it looked like there were kind of eight guys that were right there. Lots of movement. They were playing Gray at
rotation.
center. Luka Vincic got some time at center. Really moving those guys around. So they are very cross-trained should they need to move around.
It does seem at this point like 4 of the 5 starters are decided between those 3 I've already talked about. And then Grant Stark as well will start. Just a question of whether right guard or right tackle. And it looks like if Stark starts at tackle guard, but if Stark starts at that right guard spot, you're probably going to see Jacob Strand at that tackle spot. So
now, okay, Ty and I talked about this at one of the practices, and he actually says that's his ideal line is to have Strand and Stark on the right side.
I do think that's probably the highest upside offensive line. Strand's a guy that Coach M loved, raved about, started a couple games towards the end of last season, and that experience is super valuable. If Strand was to be the guy, Oregon State would have 5 guys that have seen top 25 defenses and started against them. And I do feel like that's an important part of this. It's an important part of that gelling process and to help that offense click. So if I had to lean one way, I would lean towards that Stark at guard and Strand at tackle.
I've also liked some Luka Vincic at center. He's done okay for a new guy. Xander Esty has struggled in some of his snaps I've seen this fall. It's just going to a work in progress there. How about receivers? Like, what are your takeaways from the receivers? Haven't seen a lot of Darius Clemens, but what about the guys you have seen?
Yeah, I mean, it does seem like Oregon State's got their 6 guys, and it's a pretty clear 6. It looks like they've got 4 outside guys with Trent Walker, who looks like the favorite to be Oregon State's receiver 1, and then Taz Reddick's a redshirt freshman who's really popped and had a strong camp, as well as Clemens are battling for that second outside starting spot. And then another redshirt freshman in David Wells is going to see a lot of time as well. And then in the slot with Jeremiah Noga, seems to be the pretty clear-cut starter. And then the guy who's really come on towards the end of camp has been true freshman Jordan Anderson out of Inglewood, California. He's a highly recruited kid, high 4-star, and he's had a really good camp.
Yeah, he has really come on late, and I'm with you on Taz Reddick's has really flashed. And then Trent Walker, talk about a good story. Another walk-on. Oregon State's had a plethora of those walk-ons that have actually come in and done well. So what I noticed from him is he's just hands all the time. He can come down with the ball. So we talked about running game being the strong part of this offense. What is kind of your areas for work in progress offensively?
Definitely that quarterback spot. Yeah. This is week 4 of fall camp, and Oregon State is yet to have a guy step out and separate themselves from the competition. And I do think that's area of her concern. I feel like at this point you kind of have to go with Ben Gulbranson as the starter. I don't think you've seen enough from Giovanni McCoy, and while Jabari Johnson's flashed, I don't think he's worked enough with the ones to where you can really going to see at one of McCoy or Johnson play in the Idaho State game, most likely Johnson. But if I was a gambling man, I'd put my money on Ben Gulbranson in that starting quarterback.
Does that concern you? Because we know what Ben brings.
It doesn't necessarily concern me. It would concern me if Oregon State was playing in the Pac-12 schedule. But with this lighter schedule, I feel like Gulbranson's good enough to win Oregon State games. Obviously, he's not going to go out and win them the game against in Oregon or a Cal. Like, it's going to have to be other guys that step up. But we know what Ben Gulbranson is. He's a serviceable quarterback that will make the smart throws, the smart decisions, while they may not always be the most accurate or the best throws. I haven't seen anything else that indicates that any other quarterback gives Oregon State a better chance to win games.
Yeah, this is my biggest concern. I mean, I kept thinking someone was going to step up. It just hasn't happened, and it's the inconsistency. I won't say that we haven't seen flashes, because I've actually seen things from McCoy, I've seen things from Johnson, I've seen things from Ben. But then there's no consistency, because then they'll follow it up the next day with 3 picks and look horrible. So
I mean, at this point, you have to wonder if Oregon State doesn't regret necessarily holding out for Malik Malik Murphy type
Murphy.
guy that was, Oregon State was very interested. Murphy was very interested, but he just wasn't ready to commit. I don't know. Like, looking at this quarterback room, I could go for a Malik Murphy in the quarterback room.
Yeah, that is if I'm OSU coach. I mean, Gundy's going to make his salary this in the coming weeks because I don't envy him.
Yeah,
like I said, and it's not to say that these guys can't perform, and so but that is my biggest worry right now. That is my biggest concern keeping me up. If I was being kept up at night, that's what I think about. Defensively, though, this group the offense has gone against what I would consider a really, really good Oregon State defense.
Mm-hmm.
What areas of that defense do you think will be the strongest for this team?
I think it all starts with the inside hackers. Trent Bray's done a great job coaching them in the past seasons. He's turned the reins over to Coach AJ Cooper, who was his defensive GA in 22. So he's a Trent Bray protege of sorts, and I think the Beavers have really 5 pretty solid options. Obviously, Isaiah Chisholm and Melvin Jordan are going to be the guys that play the majority of the snaps. But behind them, I think 2 junior colleges in Jairus Goodman and Aiden Sullivan have both had really strong camps. What's really impressed me has been true freshman Central Catholic product Dexter Foster. I mean,
he has shot up the depth chart.
Yes, he has. He's a guy who the coaching staff was pretty high on. We kind of thought he was a rawer player where it might take a year to redshirt him and, put some weight on to get him physically ready to compete. But he's checked in at 6'3", 216, and he's been a stud all of fall camp.
Yeah, he was one that Coach Bray talked to us during signing period.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, he was like handpicked at one of the Beavers camps a year ago.
Yep.
And that was a Trent liked him, offered him, and the kid committed on the spot. Trent just loved how raw he was, loved his aggression. And he is really, like, the past week and a half or so, really, he went from playing kind of with the 3s to moving up to playing with the 2s. So I agree. And I thought Aiden Sullivan has really popped as well.
Mm-hmm.
Really seems like a heady player.
Great in pass coverage.
Great pass coverage. So I could see something. And Coach Bray has already said it's going to be a heavy rotation on this defense. Do you see maybe Melvin Jordan and Isaiah Chisholm in on more rundowns and third down bring in Aiden Sullivan?
I wouldn't be shocked to see that. I think Chisholm and Jordan are both 2 fantastic run defenders, and I think we got a little peek of that last season in the Sun Bowl. I thought they both did a fantastic job kind of attacking the running back and filling gaps well, just really doing a great job on their run assignments. But I do think a strength of Sullivan's game is the pass coverage, and I think he provides something there that Jordan and Chisholm necessarily don't. Mm-hmm. And I think that's going to be a good path for Sullivan to get onto the field as in his first year at Oregon State.
I'm going to bring up a different area that I think will be strong, and that's the secondary. I think this might be maybe one of the deepest secondaries we've seen Oregon State have in a long time, and that's saying something because they've had some pretty deep secondaries. But when you look at a lineup that has veterans like Jaden Robinson and Skylar Thomas, Noble Thomas, Jack Conne, and then you bring in all of these transfers, Kobe Singleton and there's Tyrese Ivy, there's Cy. I mean, there's a lot of guys there that we've seen their names called. Kobe was out the first couple weeks of fall camp. He's been moving his way back in now. But just an overall really strong unit. What area do you feel on the defense is a work in progress?
I feel pretty confident about this defense as a whole. I think the thing I'm most interested to see sorted out is the way the defensive line kind of rotates. It seems like their one constant has been Samisi Haluni running with that first team defensive line. And then beyond that, it's been a handful of guys. I mean, we've seen Josh Griffiths and Jacobs Hooster a lot in the past week and a half. But prior to that, it was a lot of Thomas Collins, a lot of Taiji Hill, and Eliza Toyaki said in the past there's going to be a ton of guys that rotate. Like, you'll see up to 6 or 7 guys take snaps up front. And I think it's going to be interesting to see how that pecking order kind of sorts out. On top of those guys, you throw in Tavita Pomea and JoJo Johnson. and you got those 7 guys, and all of them are going to play. Just a matter of which guys kind of separate themselves outside of Hamisi Haluni and take those final 2 spots. So that's kind of something I'm keeping an eye on.
Yeah.
I'm
But it's
still
not
a big
concerning you.
fan. No, it's not
Yeah.
necessarily concerning me. I mean, overall, this defense has really stood out as strong, and the one thing I think they have is a lot of really strong depth. I feel like that's, even going over to the outside backers, you got Taylor Nomatoshu, but behind them you have Zekiah Sayas, DJ Westlock, Shamar Michael, I think that's how you say it, a true freshman. Just really a handful of guys that are going to compete, and I think you are going to see more rotation defensively than Oregon State's necessarily seen in the past couple of seasons.
I also think this defense, and I don't know if this is me thinking that they will, so you tell me, or am I trying to project this because I think they're going to need it? I think this defense is going to be really opportunistic. I think they're going to see a lot of takeaways. I think that's going to be a huge focus.
Yeah, I mean, the word I would use to describe this defense is probably stingy. Like, they're very aggressive. They're going to try and go get that football, and I think we've seen that in camp. I think the secondary's done a great job for the most part. There's been a few days where the passing game's clicked and they're throwing the ball pretty well, but predominantly it's been the secondary just shutting down the Oregon State passing game. And then I think with Chisholm and Jordan, I think they're going to cause a lot of turnovers. I think they're going to be in the backfield a lot, and I'm really excited to see that San Diego State game. A team starting a true freshman quarterback. That's going to be a big opportunity for Oregon State, and I'm excited to see it.
Yeah, I agree. I do think this defense will help keep Oregon State in games while the offense is kind of still getting its game legs under it. They play with a swagger. It's been fun to see. This is a very energetic defense. In fact, the scrimmage, it was last week. They had a scrimmage, and this defense was on the sideline, like doing Oregon State chants. They even did so they were trying to mimic
the chainsaw,
the crowd noise and the chainsaw. It was fun to see. So, okay. So what is keeping you up at night on defense? What is your biggest concern there?
I really don't have a lot of concerns defensively. I feel pretty strongly about how well-rounded this group is. I do feel like compared to years past, the depth appears to be better. I think they've got a lot of guys capable of playing at this level. I guess maybe my one knock would maybe be the pass rush, but I still feel like they've done a really good job. It's at this point in camp, it's not going to be about what we've seen at camp. It's going to be what we start seeing once the games start, and that's going to be here in the next week and a half. So excited to kind of see everything come to fruition and see if what we've seen in practice translate over to Saturdays.
Yeah, one thing I noticed from the scrimmage a week ago, last Tuesday, I believe, was the defense on that one. And this was a point that the coaches said they were going to work on because they didn't want it to get to this point. The team was able to move down the field, but then they totally stuffed them in the red zone. So that was something that at least they know they can do that. Joe Swaim in the comments wants to know about special teams. So what I have seen we've seen special teams work. I will say the punters, it's great to see Josh Green really booming punts again after he was out for a while. What have you seen from the field goal kicking?
Can't hear you.
Oh, you can't hear me?
Oh, okay. There we go.
Okay.
No, I can't. I was just about to text you. There we go.
So what the question from Joe Swaim was special teams.
Mm-hmm.
We've seen Josh Gray. It's great. Or Josh Green booming some punts. Good to see him after the hip surgeries he's had. But what about the kicking game field goals?
I mean, I think Everett Hayes has had a really strong camp. His issue has never been talent per se. It's more been consistency and dealing with injuries, especially over the past 2 seasons. Now he appears to be fully healthy, and I don't think in the time I've watched camp, which has been I've probably seen about 10 practices. I don't recall him missing a kick. My bigger issue is more of the backup kicker spots. There's kind of been there's a trio of guys with Caleb Ojeda, Max Walker, and Logan Curry, and none of them have really stood out. Walker originally wasn't kicking this year, but then Ojeda and Curry kind of struggled, and then we've kind of seen Walker take some more field goal reps this the past is and there is room for concern because injuries have been an issue for Everett in the past, and obviously very hopeful he stays healthy because Oregon State's gonna need him. But if something goes down and Everett gets banged up and he can't kick, Oregon State could be in some trouble.
Okay, so not a ton of depth there. Okay, think we're going to skip over the newcomers because we've talked a lot about the newcomers that are kind of in the too deep. We're going to go season game by game rundown. And this was a couple questions that people had for us. So this is going to be fun because I'm going to actually keep, I know we ran this already on Beaver Blitz, but now that we've seen camp, I'm anxious. I'm going to put down what you and I both have here.
There should be some changes.
Yeah, I think so. Okay. Idaho State home opener against the Bengals.
Gotta chalk it up as a win.
Yeah.
You know, I think we're gonna. I think not only Oregon State fans, but I feel like us as writers are gonna learn a lot. You know, practice only shows you so much. You know, these guys are rarely tackling. I feel like that first game in 11 days, we're going to learn a whole lot.
Yeah, I agree. But now, from a coaching standpoint, they don't want to show too much. They don't
exactly.
want to.
Yeah.
So it's
kind of a catch-22.
Don't walk away from that game and think, "Oh my gosh, like,
the offense,
it's going to be vanilla." Yeah.
The offense that Ryan Gunderson throws out there against Idaho State is not going to be the same plays, the same offense that's thrown out there on week 3. I can pretty much guarantee that.
Does Oregon State beat them by? Is it
ideally by 30?
By 30. Okay.
Ideally by 30. I feel like this Idaho State team, their quarterback position has been a mess. You know, I haven't done a whole lot of research into them yet. I'll start to do that here this weekend. But based off my brief dive into the program this summer, quarterback play was a big issue last year. It's a team that should be pretty good defensively, actually. But their offense is very questionable. They have no running game at all. I feel like Oregon State should pitch. They should ideally hold Idaho State to under 10 points. And you're going to want to see the offense score points, but it may be a little difficult.
Yeah. Okay, San Diego State, Beeb's first road game of the season, heading down to the Sun.
I mean, this is kind of a tough one because I think the San Diego State team in week 2 is going to look a lot different than it does towards the end of the season. I think Sean Lewis is a great coach. But I don't know that he's necessarily going to be able to turn that program around at the start of the season. Starting a true freshman quarterback in Danny O'Neill. I feel like it's going to be a good opportunity for Oregon State's defense. I think this might be a close game. It was relatively close last year. Oregon State struggled offensively against that Aztec defense. But I do have the Beavers pulling out a closer than people think game week 2 against San Diego State.
Do you think the defense, that's like a coming out party for them?
I think the offense doesn't win Oregon State that game. I think the defense wins Oregon State that game.
Okay, week 3 is a huge matchup with now ranked number 3 to number 5 in the polls, Oregon team.
I do not see Oregon State coming away with this. I think the environment is going to be popping at Reeser. I think the Beavers keep it close in the first half. But Oregon is one of the most talented teams in the country, and I think that offense is so dynamic. And I do think Oregon State's offense is going to struggle against what appears to be one of the better Oregon defenses in recent seasons. And I think in the second half, Oregon pulls away and wins that game.
Yeah, I have that as I know. I have that as a loss too. But even
I will say this, though. The Beavers have won the last 2 Civil Wars in
Corvallis.
Reeser. So I don't know, but it's going to be a tough matchup for sure. It's hands down the toughest game on the schedule.
It's the toughest game on the schedule. Absolutely. Then the very next week, Purdue comes to town.
This is going to be the most telling matchup of the early season, I think. I think this is going to be a good opportunity for Oregon State to prove to the country that they belong on a national level. I think this is an Oregon State team that's going to come out fiery after a loss. I don't really think Purdue's that great. They're bottom barrel Big Ten team. They've got questions on both sides of the ball up front, the offensive line. Experienced quarterback though with Hudson Card, who almost came to Oregon State.
Yeah, that's kind of a crazy turn of fortunes there.
I think this will be a good environment. I think Oregon State pulls out a close game and a win that gives them a lot of momentum.
Yeah, I have that as a win as well, just really because I do see this as a lower level Big Ten team.
Mm-hmm.
I think the defense will be able to shut them down. And hopefully by that point, the offense is figuring some things out. Beavs then go have a bye the end of September, and then they welcome Colorado State to Reser. A lot of home games right out of the chute. Yeah. I love it. Weather's good. It's awesome. But Colorado State comes. How does this game go compared to a few years ago when the Beavs were on the road?
Yeah, I mean, this should be a pretty fun game, I think. This is if you like offense, this will be a good game for you. Colorado State has one of the best receivers in the country in Torrey Horton. Got over 1,000 yards the past 2 seasons, and he's going to be a tough test for this Oregon State defense. He's arguably the best receiver Oregon State will play all season. Colorado State doesn't really possess much of a run game. At least last year they didn't. They do have a really good secondary, very experienced, very veteran secondary. So I think Oregon State's going to have to rely on the run game to pull ahead, which thankfully plays to Oregon State's strengths. I think this will be a pretty close game, actually, and I have Oregon State by a field goal.
Okay. Home game. I mean, that probably will put them over the.
That's the difference. If this game's in Fort Collins, I like Colorado State, but having
I'm with you. I think I had this as a loss my first before fall camp. I think there could be some momentum coming off of a bye week. I'm anxious to see a Trent Bray coach team a week after a bye, because if you remember, like Coach Riley coach teams almost came out in a lull after a bye. I don't see that happening.
Beavs weren't great either.
No, they weren't great either. So Beavs, after home game at Colorado, they hit the road for a game in Reno at Nevada.
Oregon State should dominate this game. I mean, Nevada was one of the worst teams in the country last year. Their quarterback, Brendan Lewis, was just in the start. 2 touchdown passes all season, though he has given Oregon State troubles in the past, 2021 at Colorado. But this is a Nevada team. It's their first year under head coach Jeff Choate. It's going to be a rebuilding year, and this will be a good opportunity for Oregon State to go into a road game, gain some confidence, and blow out an opposing team.
Yeah, I think that's a big W as well. So right now, Jake, we have the Beavs sitting at 5-1. Okay. Come back home to the comfort of Reser Stadium and host UNLV.
This is going to be a tough game.
Yeah, I agree on this one. This
is a coin flip in my mind. I feel like having the game at home gives Oregon State a slight advantage. But if Torrey Horton from Colorado State's not the best receiver Oregon State plays all year, it's Ricky White. And he had a monster year last year. This Rebels team went to the Mountain West championship game, and their whole team's pretty much back, save for their quarterback. But they brought in a transfer from Holy Cross, who has the ability to beat you with not only his arms but his legs as well. They run one of the most fun offenses in the country.
Yeah,
it's going to be a very sound defensive team with Barry Odom as well as the head coach. If this game's in Vegas, I'm taking the Rebels. But having it in Corvallis, I think, again, it's a close Oregon State victory.
So, yeah, I think there's a stint there with Colorado State, UNLV, and at Cal, the next game, that really kind of, in my mind, could go either way.
Yep.
When I'm looking at these. UNLV, I agree. I think it's going to be a way tougher game than most fans are thinking it's going to be. I think the Bees will drop one of those. Cal, UNLV, Colorado State. And I'm not ready to say which one. Because I know a lot of people think at Cal. I actually think UNLV might be a tougher game than at Cal, in my opinion.
I think Cal's going to be good. I mean, we'll touch on that.
Yeah.
In a bit,
Cal, so I'll say I'm going to go UNLV I'm going to say loss.
I can very well see that.
So, but you went close win?
Close win. Very close win. I could very well see this being
It's a coin flip. You're right. I mean, Okay, then the Beavs head to Cal.
I have this marked down as a loss. I think this Cal team improved every position through the transfer portal, even the ones they didn't necessarily need to. Like they bring back Jaden Ott, was arguably the top running back along with Damian Martinez in the Pac-12 last season, and they added a 4-star running back transfer on top of that. And this team, Justin Wilcox has always had the defense, and with their quarterback in either Fernando Mendoza, who had a big game against Beavers last year, and Chandler Rogers, who had 29 touchdowns and 4 picks at North Texas last year. They're going to be set at the quarterback spot. They've got 2 strong running backs, and they brought in 3 4-star transfer receivers. This is a team that looks a lot improved from last year, and they're one of my surprise teams in the country, actually. I have Cal potentially pushing for a top 25 spot.
Really?
Kind of strange to say, yeah. Like, I'm a big Cal believer this season. I think Wilcox is coaching for his job, and I think he's surrounded himself with some pretty strong talent. It's going to be that they are breaking in a brand new offensive coordinator, so that'll be interesting. But
it's midway through the season. They should have the kinks out by then.
Yep, exactly. Because this will be game 7 or 8 for Cal. I got to go with Cal.
Okay. Yeah, like I said, Nevada or Colorado State, UNLV, or Cal, there's going to be a loss in there.
Yep.
So, because, yeah, I mean, I look at those 3, and those 3 games are toss-ups. I think being at Cal gives Cal the edge.
Does it, though?
True. We do know that it's hard to play at Cal and Stanford because there's no atmosphere. It's not a hostile atmosphere. It's no atmosphere.
I think you'll see the same number of Cal fans at that game as you would if it was in Corvallis.
Yeah. There might be more Beaver fans there than Cal fans. Okay, then the Beavs have another bye, second bye of the season, before welcoming San Jose State. To me, that's a win.
Yep, I agree. It should be a rebuilding year for Ken Himatala, who's a great coach, fantastic coach, but year 1, they're transitioning to a run-and-shoot type offense. Don't really have an experienced quarterback. I think the Beavers are going to pounce, and I think this, along with Nevada, are going to be the 2 easiest games outside of Idaho State this year.
Okay. Then they hit the road for another game I actually think could be a sneaky hard one, and that's at Air Force. It's in November. Weather could be an issue, and then you have an Air Force team that just wants to, a different offense, wants to run the ball. How do you see this one? I picked this as a loss earlier in the season.
I have this as a win.
I don't think so. I think Oregon State wins this one now after seeing the fall camp.
See, I'm actually switched. I had them as a win preseason, but I think it's going to be a loss now. Playing in Colorado Springs is going to be tough. Oregon State's never done it before.
You have altitude to deal with.
Atmosphere. Yep, you have the atmosphere. And I think this is a team that's going to run the ball a lot and control the clock and take the ball out of the Oregon State offense's hands. And I do like Oregon State's linebackers in this matchup, but playing against this Air Force offense with all the misdirection and offensive line movement and stuff, it's going to be tough. So I've kind of switched this. I was going back and forth during the preseason predictions, but I've got this charted as a loss for now.
So right now you're at 7-3. That's where you have the team.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I think Air Force, like I said, I picked a loss. So this is actually on Saturday, or what day? I don't even know what day it was. We spoke to AJ Cooper, and he actually said that, he loves these linebackers. He loves coaching them, but he said the challenge this year is coaching against so many different offenses.
Yeah,
you have, Air Force with their run heavy, and so UNLV with what they bring. So a lot of different things to go there. So then we come home to Reser for the Pac-2 championship. Cougars come to town week before Thanksgiving. Cougars have had the Beavs number the past couple years. How does this one go?
And they've won since 2014, all but one game. So I want to say that's 9 out of the last 10.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
I'm not sold on Washington State this season. I think they lost a lot, not only to the portal, but draft and graduation as well. I think this is a game that Oregon State, it's going to be an emotional game, I think. I think it's going to be one where the defense is going to prevail, and I think the defense gets it done, and the Beavers win pretty comfortably.
Yeah, I do too. I have this as a win. Senior day in Corvallis against, your Pac-2 rival. That I just, like you said, this is going to be a defensive battle, I think, actually. And then in what might be one of the toughest games, outside of Oregon, the Beavs hit the road for a Friday morning after Thanksgiving, 9 a.m. tilt, Boise State on the turf.
I've got this down as a loss. I mean,
I do too.
Playing in Boise's tough. I mean, Oregon State.
They lost 10 games like in the last. They're like 63-10 or something at home.
Has Oregon State ever won at Boise, or at least in recent years? Because I know they lost there when game day went there.
Yeah, I don't know. If anybody in the comments knows.
Because they haven't played there since Rogers in 09, 10, something like that.
Yeah.
It's a tough place to play. I do think their quarterback situation's interesting, going with Maddox Madsen over Malachi Nelson, but this team might have the best running back in the country in Ashton Jeanty. Oregon State got a little look at him at 22 before he kind of broke out, but I think he's going to cause some problems this season. He's going to be tough to defend. I think weather's going to play a factor in this game as well, as is a kickoff at 9 a.m.
9 a.m. Yeah.
How used to that are the Beavers? It'll be 10 o'clock Mountain Time, but the Beavers don't play any other game earlier than 12:30 or even 3:30 all season.
Yeah.
So that's going to be an adjustment period. It's changes the whole routine of things, and I think it's going to be a loss to Boise, and I'm not sure it's a close game either, to be honest. So I've got this team chalked down at 8-4 with the trip to the Sun Bowl, and we're going back.
Oh no, not the Sun Bowl, not again.
The Sun Bowl to play North Carolina. That's going to be my prediction.
Okay.
Sun
Wow.
Bowl, North Carolina.
Okay. Well, I mean, hey, it would be Vegas. Vegas has the over under set at 7.5 wins. So you're taking the over.
I would lean the over. I think it's kind of a push. I wouldn't put any money on it personally, but if I had to, I'd lean over.
I'm going over with that. I'm going with the over. Okay, that is the Beaver Blitz. I have them at 8.
I think we both.
I had 8-4 as well. I was kind of wishy washy on a couple there, but 4 losses, 4 to 5. But if they can, and like I said, those 4 losses that I have, I feel like could actually go either way, except for Oregon and Boise State. So 2 of those losses. So that's where we're at. That is, you've heard now, Jake and my fearless position. Okay, Joe Swaim in the comments says 10-2. So I think if the Beavs go 10-2, Jake, is that like exceeding all expectations?
At this point, I would say so. I just think with what we've seen with a lack of a quarterback, in a consistent passing game, to go 10-2, I'd be very happy.
I agree. If we had seen more from quarterbacks,
my kind of take on this is if the Beavers were playing a Pac-12 schedule with this team rather than the team they would have had if things stayed the way it would have, I see it as a team fighting for bowl eligibility. Okay. 6-6, around there. But having that softer schedule, I think, is going to be a blessing in disguise.
Okay, there you go. There you had it. We're going to take a quick break for the podcast side to plug in an ad. But if you haven't joined Beaver Blitz, now's the time to join. You have to actually get in the lodge and read Jake, mine, and Ty's thoughts from the 18 practices, because there's some amazing information in there. So if you're not a member, jump in there now. You can save 30% on an annual membership. If you are on a full price, you get a free Paramount Plus subscription. So Beaver Blitz is this spot. We have been around covering the Oregon State Beavers exclusively since 2002. What is that, 22 years?
That's older than me.
That's older than Jake. We have been around longer than Jake had been. This is crazy. Okay, so get into Beaver Blitz. I promise you it is a fun spot and you will be a smarter football fan. We'll be back in just a second with the second half of the show. Okay, welcome back. we are going to jump in the second half of the show, and we have a huge mailbag. And I took questions off of Twitter and out of the lodge. So we have a whole bunch, Jake. Some might have been answered. So if you don't hear your question, it's because we answered it during the show. Okay. Oh, I'm going back to the comments. When Joe Swaim in the comments on YouTube, he had Oregon State at 10-2, and he said his losses were Oregon and Boise. Fair. Totally fair. I'm there too. That is where I'm at too. If Oregon State can eke out, wins in that Colorado, UNLV, Cal, Air Force, foursome. Okay. Michael P52 said, with the possibility of Ben starting, has he made improvements from 2022? If so, in what areas?
I think he's a lot more mobile, and I think he's improved his arm strength. You only learn so much during practice, so it's kind of more seeing it translate to a game. And for fans that kind of take last year's bowl game into account, I wouldn't read anything into that. I mean, if you look at the players he was around, going up against the team he was going up against, I don't think any quarterback would have looked overly great.
Yeah,
I do think he's going to surprise some people with his legs. I think we've seen that. Like, we've seen him pull the ball and keep it and tuck it and run for some yards. And I think he's done a good job at times when he's been under pressure, scrambling and evading that pressure. That's probably the biggest jump I've seen. But the thing about Ben is Ben's just a smart player. He knows the playbook in and out. And I think he's a lot more confident too.
I was going to say confidence is what I'm seeing from him.
Yeah. I mean, talking to him in that interview back in week 2, I believe, or week 1, week 2, he seemed confident. I mean, he was saying like, I believe I'm the guy that can make this. He's like, I think I'm a smart football player. Whereas in years past, he would necessarily say like, yeah, like whatever role the team wants me to do, I'll fill that. Whereas now he's like, I think I'm the guy. And I feel like that's something you want from your quarterback, is that confidence and that moxie type.
Yeah. Yeah. He's not going to wow anybody with his arm strength, but it is, I would say, better.
Definitely improved.
Yeah. And I think the confidence is the biggest thing. Okay. Reeser B 23 has a couple questions. One, after hearing the interview with Canzano and President Murphy, what do you put the odds that OSU is in a Power 4 conference in 2026?
So 26 is 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
I would bet. I would think so. I think what we're going to see is a scheduling alliance with the Big 12
next year.
Yeah, that's kind of what my gut's telling me. And then if those TV ratings are good, which I think they will, and if the Beavers can put out a good quality on the field, which ideally they will, then I think that'll get the Beavers. And again, this whole thing isn't done. I think that's just a matter of time before the ACC is done. And there's 14 other schools that are homeless, looking for a home, and it's there's no way to really tell until that first domino of the second round of realignment falls. And I think once that happens, I think the picture is going to get a lot clearer.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I think Oregon State will end up in a power conference. It's just a matter of all this other stuff. And what totally sucks about the whole thing is just it's all being driven by TV, by 2 networks, one especially. He also asked, what could OSU do on game day off of the field that would excite you in 2025? Like new entrance video, improved sound system, flyovers. Those are just examples. What would be something super cool and different that OSU could do in 2025?
In 25 or this year?
25. That's what he's asking. So
25. I don't know. That's kind of a tough call. I mean, I haven't really experienced a game day in the new stadium yet from like a fan perspective. So it's difficult to kind of, I don't know. I mean, maybe I don't know. I feel like
that's me. I feel like I'm so out of touch because I haven't watched a game.
Yeah, like it's difficult. I feel like the students do a really good job already.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not a big fan of the tail clap, to be honest. So maybe getting away to maybe dumping that. I just don't really know. Like, that's a good question.
Okay, we'll table that for next week. And we can that because I don't, like I said, it's been so long since like I said, when I was a student, it was the old berm on the west side, and nobody showed up because Oregon State was so bad. I did. I went to all the games, but it's hard because everybody's gonna have different opinions. I mean, I know like pregame, a lot of people like
Alcohol in
to
the
do.
student section.
There you go. A lot of the
Get
the
students to say.
tailgating.
Get the students to say. Just saying.
Just give the students a say. Alcohol in the student section. That
I
could get
feel like it helped them
crazy.
stay. It helped them stay. Like, I don't know.
Don't they just smuggle it in?
They're hard about it. Like, it's
Really?
Yeah, like my freshman and sophomore year, I would never do this, but yeah.
You would never do this.
I feel like that'd be a good way to keep it. It'd definitely be hard to control. Like, I get why they don't do it, but I feel like a lot of the older students don't necessarily stay in the student section because they can't drink there. I don't know.
As far as entrance video, I mean, they're always kind of fun if they can do. They've always done some kind of different fun entrance videos. I don't think that
2008 was the best one.
Which one?
2008.
Which one was that?
That was the Nelly. Here Comes the Boom. And
yeah, that was a good one.
Yeah. Like each game with like big
hits.
It's from prior years against that.
Yeah.
I still watch that the Civil War one every night the week of the Civil War. Still watch that.
That was good.
That's a good one.
I love flyovers. I always like flyovers, but that's not going to get people excited, I don't think necessarily.
Unless it's a big game.
I actually love it when I wish they would do more besides just have them like come out midfield at like one of the timeouts. But I love it when they have former player greats there and do something maybe before the game or at halftime where they can interview. Yeah, promotion or like
a Jaquiz Rogers shirt.
Yeah,
or
So yeah, I mean, and okay, Clint Moses in the chat actually has a good. Let's do, our game day formula has put us in this position. Try something new. Why can't we just steal SEC game day traditions?
Exactly. I mean, kind of did like that tail clap.
Yeah, the tail clap.
It's the Gator Chomp. Like, it's the Gator Chomp.
Yeah, and tailgating has been, it's pretty big time now. I mean, sometimes I cringe when the parking lot looks empty, but I think the tailgates right around the stadium is a huge thing, and that's SEC-esque. I don't see anybody at Oregon State dressing up, like they do in the SEC where they're dressing up in nice clothes because the weather just gets too yucky. But
springtime or the first couple games you will.
Yeah. So
as it turns October.
But again, I think like Jake's kind of pointing to, I think the part of the fun would be to, and they're trying it this year with the whole striping thing with each section wearing. That'll be interesting. I hope it works. Yeah. So Roger Villanueva. So Roger, I was there in the 90s. In the late 80s and early 90s, we carried half-rack suitcases of beer and Boda bags full of hard liquor. Yeah, so I remember back stopping at the Et, getting, the 32-ounce soda, and then stopping at a Live Out, maybe pouring and then I didn't do this. My friends did because I was actually a host with the athletic department, so I had to work. But you could actually just walk in with your Et cup. Nobody cared.
They need to bring
times have changed. Yep, just carry in those Keystone and Keystone Lights. Oh, don't tell me you guys are too good for Keystone and what's the other one?
I'm a Coors Light guy. I'm not a Keystone guy.
Oh gosh, the college man, it was the Keystone Lights. Actually, I was a Diet Mountain Dew girl. I didn't drink my first 2 years. So, okay, J-Man. Does Jermaine Terry seem like he is progressing and turning into a reliable pass catcher that might get used frequently, or does it seem like he might be primarily a blocker?
Yeah, I think you're going to see. JT a lot more in the passing game this year. Yesterday, he had a really good catch right over Jack Conne. It was one of the better plays I've seen Jermaine make. I mean, physically, he's a freak. At 6'4", 250. He's a big dude.
But I see what J-Man's saying because there's been the past couple years.
Last year he was the run guy, like the run.
Yeah. Because he kind of had brick hands every once in a while.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't seen a ton of drops. I can't think of any off the top of my head.
I would say the tight ends have really impressed me this last week or so, week and a half.
Yeah, I mean, depth was an area of concern But outside of Terry, I think you got two good pass catching options in Bryce Caulfield and Cooper Jensen as well as a guy who's kind of come on strong. And then with Cal transfer Andy Alfieri, he's going to be kind of like the H-back type player that Riley Sharp played in 23. And I think you're going to see those four guys play with Gabe Milborn as well, potentially rotating in. I was definitely concerned about that depth, and I'm pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, me too. I think that was an area. And I, too, in two of the practices, I remember actually seeing Jermaine Terry make a big catch. And one was just down at the end zone. He hauled in at the 4-yard line, hauled in a big pass right down when we were setting up for media availability. So I do expect him to see more action in the passing game.
A freshman tight end that's really kind of popped and stood out. He's not going to play this year. Is Carson Cobb. Walk on out of Phoenix, the Scottsdale Phoenix type, somewhere over there. He's had a really good spring. He's a really good fall. He's Oregon State's hit on some walk-ons in the past, and Kolb's had a really good fall. Like, I've been really impressed by that kid.
Yeah.
It's named potentially now.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to point him out too because he made a couple plays with the third team back in the first scrimmage that I was like, wait, who is this kid? I had to grab my roster. Like, who is this guy?
He had some really nice plays on Saturday during the second scrimmage as well.
Yeah. Kretcher wants to know how Gutridge is looking, the true freshman quarterback out of Wilsonville. Honestly, we haven't seen enough of him. Yeah.
It's just in the three quarterbacks. Haven't seen any Dom Montiel, any Gutridge, any Jake Sanders.
Does that surprise you we haven't seen Montiel? Because I thought during spring, I thought he looked good.
I think what the coaching staff's focused on is getting their three guys and getting on that guy and trying to separate the one from the three. And I think they were more focused on getting those three guys reps. But yes, we'll see those two guys in the spring next year.
Yeah, absolutely.
At least hopefully. And nowadays,
Go Beavs to Chummer. What former Beaver running back does Alla remind you of with what you've seen so far?
I'd say stylistically, he's kind of a Jamar Jefferson type. Okay. He's not a between the tackles guy like a Steven Jackson or a Damian Martinez. He's kind of a quicker back. It's about the same size as Jamar Jefferson as well. It checks in at 5'11", 210-ish. That'd be kind of my closest comparison.
That's a good one, actually. I was thinking about that one when I was getting ready.
I feel like it's kind of tough until a game. Like, obviously the Hankerson Jaquiz, just because
they look so much
that was like they just like look the exact same. But I would lean Jefferson. He doesn't really strike me as a Null Jackson bigger back. He's probably not as quick or as shifty as Ken Simonton, but I feel like Jamar Jefferson, he's shown some pretty solid speed. So
all is quick. Yeah, he's a really fast runner. He's going to be fun. That's one. And Cornell Hatcher. Yeah.
Yeah. Hatcher is definitely more of the between the tackles. Damian Martinez, what Oregon State's seen last year with Damian and Deshaun Fenwick. And I think Hatcher is going to be a guy they put some weight on. He's 205 to 210 in that range right now, and I think they're going to try and bulk him up another 10.
So, but both those guys, I think, you can correct me, but I'm excited about the future with both those guys.
Yeah, they both may not play a whole ton this year. I think we'll see Salahadin a little bit this year, but I think going into next year, those two are going to be pretty significant contributors.
Yeah, I definitely both names to watch. Matt Schiffoni wanted to know Vegas over and under 7.5. We've already talked about that one. Lou Goggles 2000. How disciplined have players been regarding penalties? Too aggressive defense or just right?
When there's been referees, we really haven't seen a whole lot of penalty.
Yeah, I agree.
There was been a few offsides. There was 2 on hard counts yesterday with Jacob Schuster and Tavita Pomea. 4th and short, 3rd and short, with the quarterback trying to draw them offsides. And that's just something that practice is going to kind of weed out and get rid of. But it has appeared to be pretty disciplined. Granted, it's practice, and the refs may not be calling it as tight as they would in a game necessarily. That's something, again, I think we're going to get to really experience the first time this Saturday, or excuse me, next Saturday and the Saturday after that is kind of how well Trent Bray has his team dialed up on.
I will say the first week and a half, it was a little squirrely. We saw lots of, as some coaches say, extracurricular activities going on. Some brawls, not brawls, but huddles breaking out. That has gone. The second half of camp, we have seen none of that. So they've cleaned that up. So I would actually say they're more disciplined than I was expecting. Because I do think that this defense is going to play on the edge of that aggression, but
it's going to be physical defense.
It's going to be physical defense, but yes, we have not seen any more jawing or,
excessively, at least.
Excessively, yeah. I mean, there's talk, but no, it's not like where both sides meet at the middle of the field.
That only happened once.
Yes. It happened a couple times when you weren't there.
Oh, really? I missed it?
Yes, you missed a couple.
Those were the worst.
Yeah, there were a couple there that got a little chippy, I guess I could say. Ed McGee
won in the last 3 days.
Ed McGee said, how many points a game do the Beavs need to score score per game to be an 8-win team?
27.
27. There you go. Northwest Sports Fan 1219. Has play calling been adapted to each quarterback's strengths?
It doesn't really appear so. No, it's been pretty.
In fact, we've seen a lot of just situational stuff.
Yeah. And I think that's intentional.
Yeah. We're kind of hurrying now because we're getting down to crunch time here for the hour. Beaver Fan 2021 win-loss predictions. We've done that. He liked them last year when we did it. Also, who leads the team in receptions, receiving yards, and receiving touchdowns?
Receptions and yards, I'm going to go Trent Walker.
Okay.
Touchdowns, I'm going to go Darius Clemens.
Okay.
I will say keep an eye on Taz.
I was going to say, Taz.
Pops.
And Wells. I mean, David
yeah.
Wells is really Mr. G. Gray. After 3 weeks of camp, what would you like to see from this team that you have not seen yet, excluding QB1?
Well, that was my main point. There was going to be the quarterbacks, but I would say more consistency from the passing game, which kind of ties into that quarterbacks. But really, until Oregon State gets that guy locked down, there's going to be questions about the passing game.
Yeah. And I think that's the hugest one. I mean, we've seen, I think the running game will be okay, but as we've seen in the past, Oregon State can't be one-dimensional.
If you look at what's killed all Oregon State teams offensively outside of 2019, it's been the lack of a passing game. Like the last time we had a consistent passing threat, it was Jake Luton to Isaiah Hodgins in 19.
Yeah.
And prior to that, it was Cooks in 13. So it's been quite some time.
Yeah, there's big droughts. So I agree. You take out QB1, but and I agree, but they go hand in hand. It's the passing game. Tight says, has Gundy talked at all about the new on-field communication rules between coaches and QBs?
Not when I was there. I don't know.
Yeah, he talked to him the day I was there. They are going to use it. It's been a big thing. I mean, the media, a couple people in the media have been all over this. Gundy, I mean, he said it'll be nice because he can talk to them. He has it's like a 15-second little window he can talk to them. I asked if they could talk back, and he said no. It's a one-way only.
Really?
He said, yeah. So it's one way. They can't be like, no, coach, I'm not doing that. But they can look over if they don't like the call and like give them a shrug shoulders or shake their head like a pitcher. But no, I mean he said a lot of their call. He said it will be good, especially just to give them feedback or to give them like watch this or watch for that. Defensively, I thought it was interesting because everybody keeps asking the defensive coaches, and they are going to utilize it, but they don't think it is that big of a deal. They will have one of the middle linebackers will have it in place.
Yeah. I
actually know. I think it's either Isaiah Chisholm or Aiden Sullivan.
Oh, really?
One of those two. Yeah. That's what Coop said the other day. But he said all of our calls are made. They're made via signals and such. For the whole defense, what we will do though is if Keith up in the box sees something, we can
mark it down,
put it in their ear. But their big thing is we don't want to fill their head with a bunch of stuff to make them start thinking. We want them to play and do their job.
Defensively, you've got to react rather than.
Yes.
'Cause I feel like if you overthink everything, your
That
mind's
split second, yeah, you're not
it's
going to
gonna
make the
slow you
play.
down with your reaction, and I feel like that's the most important thing about defense is being able to react really on a dime and
Yeah.
go and make it
Offensively, I could see it helping, calling it a
Quarterback.
play or maybe changing a play, and then also giving some feedback really quickly to some. But okay, that is that. Idaho B fan, O-line and D-line progression. Obviously, QB has been a hot topic on the board, but outside of that position, we will lose or win games in the trenches. I think we talked about that. He did say, I know Jake mentioned a couple spots on both sides of the line that are either up in the air or unsure of. I was glad to see the last couple of reports that Schuster is running with Saluni with the ones. In those same reports, Collins is now running with the twos, and Josh Griffiths has been running with the ones. I know it's unproven talent, but there's depth. We talked about that. All seven of them will be playing. And I believe tomorrow, are you releasing your first depth chart?
offensive.
Offensive. Okay. Offensive depth chart tomorrow, defensive Thursday.
That's the plan, and then
That's the plan.
Friday.
And the special team Friday.
Quarter though.
Inigo Montoya, win-loss record. We gotcha. Kevin Petermeyer on Twitter. Darius Clemens. He said he hasn't heard a lot about Darius Clemens. Darius Clemens has not been participating a lot. So we're told it's not a long-term thing.
They're just trying to keep him healthy.
Yeah, trying to keep him healthy. So we just don't have a lot to report on him. But if you're in the lodge, get in the lodge because those practice reports tell you exactly what's going on. And if you were a coach, who would you start at QB?
If I was coach,
Mm-hmm.
Ben Gobranson.
Okay, against Idaho State,
Yeah,
I would start Jabari Johnson.
I'm
that go with the young guy, see what he can do against.
That's fair.
Give him a half. I would say if I was coach, and I get it. I get this season is so monumental and Oregon State needs to win games, but I think I would at least give him a quarter. I'd say you're starting first quarter, see what he does.
I just don't think Jabari's worked enough with the ones where they can justify putting him out there.
That's true.
Like
True. That's fair.
At least I've seen in the last 3 days, maybe 3-4 drives with the ones, and I know he wasn't getting a lot.
And it's only been like the past week that he's moved up with the twos.
Yeah. So I don't get like the big thing is chemistry with the receivers with that line. And I feel like Ben's probably got that dialed down best along with Giovanni out of those three. I don't know. It's going to be interesting. I could very well see it be Jabari. I would just go with Gobranson.
Yeah, and I like I said, probably the smart move would be go with Ben. So where Ben, I mean, he is more mobile than I think most people think. You'll be surprised. I think where Jabari's strength is his running. But what I have seen from Jabari is that he maybe has a tendency right now to tuck and run too quickly and isn't trusting his pocket. And that's what he needs to work on. He's
almost like skittish back there. Like as soon as he feels one guy coming from his right, instead of stepping up and evading that pressure, he's kind of just tuck and run. And so that doesn't work out all the time. Yeah. So the flip side to my this is why I'm not a coach is because you don't want to take a young guy and totally shoot his confidence. And if so you don't want to do that if he's not completely ready. So Jake's the smart coach. Jake, you're the smart coach. Okay, Josh Harley said a lot of uncertainty, but what is the one thing about the squad that you're absolutely certain of going into the season performance related? The defense is going to be the strength of this team. Yeah. Defense is going to rock. Defense is going to be fun. Be good defense. Yeah. Clint Moses, he has an idea for something that'd be fun. Is to do. He says every school has been doing fun documentary episodes, kind of like a Hard Knocks, following the team during camp. Why not us? It looked like they were doing that during the spring, and then the Martinez stuff hit, and after that, it was kind of yeah. But, so, and I actually brought it up the other day. I met the new kind of social media and marketing person for football, and it's a lot of it is just manpower, and actually coming up with a plan, and something like that takes so many hours of putting together when they would rather get out, stuff on Twitter from the scrimmage like immediately. So it's not saying it's not going to happen, but it would need more planning. Maybe next year.
maybe spring. Okay, Jake, we did it. You're healthy.
Finally.
Game week is a week away. We'll come back.
Lemonade.
I'm thinking next week. I actually have to drive to Arizona. I'm doing a road trip with my son. I get to move him into college, but we'll do it. We're going to do it next week. I'll do it from Arizona. So, and Ty, like I said, Ty apologized. He had some work stuff pop up, but it's so fun to be back talking football. So next week we will be talking Idaho State. Hopefully same time, same place. We're going to try to get into a routine of when we do this so you guys can kind of plan on it. And we're also going to try to bring in some players from time to time when we can. So lots of stuff on the horizon for the Damn Podcast and at Beaver Blitz. But until next week, I'm Angie Machado. He's Jake Hedberg. Join us next time for the Damn Podcast.